Hello you lovely lot, and welcome back to another inspirational episode. This week I have been talking to Phoebe from Off the Patch.
So we launched Off the Patch and found out, I think a week or two after we launched our website that I was pregnant with our first child. Very exciting. And then my husband was deployed for 5 months and came back a week before we had our daughter, which was lovely. So he went away to a little bit of a pregnant wife and came back to a very pregnant wife and then our first born, which was, it's bonkers. But I think that's really how military life goes. You kind of just go along with it.
In this episode, we talk about setting up a business and the challenges you can face doing that. How Phoebe's managed to launch a startup during a difficult pregnancy with her husband deployed, and the similarities between a new business and a new baby. This is a great episode if you're wondering how you might have a family and a business whilst living this military life, especially if your partner is frontline and is looking at shared paternity leave and how that might work within the armed forces. It's not about having it all, but it's about being flexible around military life whilst achieving your own dreams. So I really hope you enjoy this episode. Hello, Phoebe, and thank you so much for coming to talk to me today.
Hi, Jess. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, not a problem. So I'm sure loads of people have heard of Off the Patch and your amazing business, but for those who haven't, please could you tell us a little bit about it?
Of course. So Off the Patch provides military to military lets. So we service landlords that own their own properties when they're posted to rent them out to other military families. So whether that's you're currently serving, you're a veteran, or you're associated with the military. So for example, if you work as a contractor on base, or maybe for the Met Office, for example, so working close with those serving, but also moving around looking for accommodation, and also those who maybe don't want to live in service families accommodation, so looking for somewhere off the patch rather than living on the patch, maybe because they're not married or they just don't want to live behind the wire or in a beautiful magnolia home.
And why is it different to just going to any old letting agency? How is it special?
So we are really military focused. So it's really important for us at Off the Patch that our landlords and tenants are equal and both catered for and looked after. We found in the lettings industry that landlords are often favoured, and especially with highs and lows of military life, that can also be quite difficult for being a tenant. So it's really important for us that most of our properties are family homes of the landlords. So it's really important to our landlords that their homes are well maintained. So for example, if the boiler goes, it's in their interest to get it fixed swiftly rather than a tenant being stuck with no hot water and maybe a deployment going on, and obviously the things that happen at home, because things tend to, certainly from my experience, break when my husband is away overseas and completely uncontactable. And also we just look to find mutually beneficial contracts. So maybe we've signed tenancy agreements that fit people's postings, so tenants know that they're not going to be, have to move, during a tour, that they'll be able to see out a tour in a property. And again, for landlords, that they've maybe got someone looking after their home for them for the whole of a posting, rather than swapping tenants. Also, I just think as a landlord myself, with a military tenant, you know exactly what you're going to get. I think, there's that trust within the community that someone's going to look after your home, and obviously that they need it as a stopper while they're posted to that particular place. So yeah, I think certainly as a landlord, I just feel a bit more confident knowing that there's a military family in my home that is just using it for a short period of time during their posting.
Which is really important, because flexibility and military life are so important. They go hand in hand with each other, because you just wouldn't do it. And it makes perfect sense that you're from the same community, you have the same sort of morals, so therefore you would want those people in what could be your forever home. So somebody who's never really, thought about renting property, we rented before we were married, but not since. How on earth do you get into it? And why do you like it? And why have you built a business around it?
We have many friends who brought forward their weddings because they couldn't find housing. And when they've been posted, they've had to get married maybe a little sooner than they would have normally planned, just to be able to accommodate that. Whereas with Off the Patch, because we're providing rental properties within commutable distance to bases, obviously there's another option. Also with the future accommodation model, which is the pilots have already started for across the Air Force, the Army and Navy. Moving forward, the military are actually encouraging people to move into the private rental sector, and there'll be less service families accommodation available. So certainly moving over the next few years, there is going to be more of a need for private rents for military families, as a lot of the MOD accommodation is being sold off, and it isn't going to be as available as it has been before, and certainly for the same price, rents are going to go up, which is what the future accommodation model is telling us at the minute. But really, that's just to fit in with modern, family life. Not everybody, decides to get married anymore, and people's, circumstances have changed as we've moved into the 21st century. So it's, really just to fit in line with that.
Yes, and for somebody who's been looking at the future accommodation model, as somebody, because I live in a married quarter and have been a little bit confused about it in the past, but I think I'm getting my head around it now. I think if you are listening and you haven't heard about it and you are married to somebody or living with somebody in the armed forces, then definitely go and have a look at it and find out the plan and what's happening and how the pilots are working. And equally, if you do have your own home, maybe it's time to think about the offerings that Off the Patch could give you. I think that's a really good way of supporting our community and moving into the future. Like you said, that's really important.
I think the military of defence have been really supportive in encouraging us to own our own homes. There is a Forces Help to Buy available that I know a lot of people have taken advantage of. But unfortunately, we're still moved around and posted around as to where obviously job opportunities come up. So it does mean that, although we've, bought these houses and settled down roots, we're then, as service life goes, forced to, uproot and leave them. So especially when people have, bought forever homes, it's nice to know that, someone's looking after that, for, that posting while you're away. For you to, ideally come back to, rather than, having to sell it and move around, especially with stings such as, stamp duty and whatnot nowadays, where, you could be, a loss if you keep, selling your home and moving around.
Yes, this is a really good solution. So you've been trading for a little while, which is brilliant. And most of us who have started a business know just how much hard work it is. It's exhausting. It's also pretty amazing. But you did all of this whilst being pregnant and your husband was deployed. How on earth did you manage it?
I don't know. I don't know the answer, Jess. I think with most of my experience being a military partner and subsequently wife, you tend to look back on bonkers scenarios and go, how did we get through that? I think, we just went with the flow, really. So we launched Off the Patch and found out, I think a week or two after we launched our website, that I was pregnant with our first child. Very exciting. And then my husband was deployed for 5 months and came back a week before we had our daughter, which was lovely. So he went away to a little bit of a pregnant wife and came back to a very pregnant wife and then our first born, which was, it's bonkers. But I think that's really how military life goes. You kind of just go along with it. In terms of running the business, we just really had to adapt. So I had a difficult pregnancy, so I was then able to travel. I wasn't very mobile towards the end. So it just meant that we just had to alter how we ran things, really. I've been very, very fortunate to have an amazing team Off the Patch who were really, really supportive and on the ground were making sure that everything was done and, that certainly our customers, our landlords and tenants weren't affected by me getting myself knocked up. And my difficult pregnancy. But I think it's really important to stress that, like, in no way am I Superwoman, and it certainly, wasn't like easy. I think especially with like social media and, celebrities, you look at people kind of having it all and doing it all, and it looks very easy and glossy, and yeah, certainly it didn't look like that at all. But everything got done, and I think you've just really got to set like expectations that are achievable for yourself and that are also movable. So certain targets that we set ourselves, we've just had to alter because I maybe wasn't in high capacity to meet everything. I think running a home while you're completely on your own, while we don't live near any family. We do have a strong network. We have a really good community up here where we are.
And you say that you were a superwoman, and yet weeks after giving birth, you're already joining in with a virtual networking event that I ran. It just sounds, for somebody who has not done it yet, the thought of starting a business and running a business and having a tiny baby and military life thrown on top as well, maybe that's just one thing too much for us. I know that military-wise we are very well, and spouses and partners, we're very resilient and we're very tough. But fair play to you. I think maybe you can claim that superwoman tag, actually.
I definitely can't. I think I've been really well supported by our other members of staff, and I absolutely would not have been able to do that without our staff members. So that was integral, and also the support of my husband, and also my husband's service in the Air Force, so the RAF as well. So I went back to work 3 weeks after having our daughter, and the team were really supportive in covering that period. But my husband's been approved 6 months shared paternity leave, and really without that I wouldn't have been able to have continued at all. So it's quite new, the concept of shared paternity leave. My husband's serves in the Air Force on the front line, and I wasn't quite sure whether it would be approved. It's unprecedented in his role for someone to have applied for shared paternity, but certainly under our family makeup, it made most sense for me to go back to work and continue to grow the business, and for him to be the primary carer for our daughter. So that's why it's worked. But yeah, it certainly wouldn't have worked without that. I think you've just really got to adapt to what's right for your family and at the time. And it's always been really important for me, starting up off the patch, that I have my own identity. And I think it's really hard when you commit to someone in the forces that, you have to move around, and, the aspirations and dreams that you've had for yourself, you have to alter because they don't fit in with military life. They just don't. So I think, from having to take a step back previously, it's been really important, I think, for me to be able to have my own baby, not in terms of our daughter, in terms of our business, my own thing that's, just mine, and that I can kind of prove myself on. And I think, even to show our daughter, that, women can make it not just in the home, because it's important to we're quite a traditional family. It's important, to me that, I am successful at home, and, I'd like to keep a nice house, and, all those things. I don't think there's anything wrong with being, a housewife. I pride myself in, my role at home, but also, to show her that, women can also be successful in business. And yeah, I'm more than just my husband's wife. I'm Phoebe Hayes, and I have achievements in my own right. I think that's really, really important.
I love that so much. It's the same in our marriage, I feel. So my husband is also frontline. He's also very operational, and he's having the most amazing time and the best career, and he's doing his, he's working really hard, but he's doing well. And I have this odd competitive thing with him where it shouldn't all be just him, and that I can do it too. And actually, I think that's really important, that we both support each other within our marriage to do all those dreams, because like I said earlier, you have to be flexible about, with military life, but you can be flexible, but also achieve some things. And I think it's really interesting, the new shared paternity leave, especially for somebody running a business, because I think when we run a business, we don't think that we're in a proper job, and we don't, have the usual things that you have when you go to an office, and all those things, Christmas parties, pensions, insurances, all those things. But actually changing your mindset to say to your partner or your husband, let's do shared maternity, paternity care is really, really interesting at this time. And I love the fact that the Air Force and the other services are picking up and doing it.
Yeah, it's definitely worked for us. We wouldn't have been able to have continued with the direction that we wanted to take off the patch in without it. And, you know, besides the business, it's really worked well for our family. You know, even to the point where obviously I am working, but just having my husband, you know, not be deployed and being able to, you know, be at home for the first 6 months of our daughter's life. Certainly, you know, in terms of our friends, they haven't been afforded that luxury. And I think it's really important for us, just to have been able to have enjoyed this time as a family.
Yeah, so important and so brilliant. I will be telling my husband all about it.
I was going to say on the back end of that, I remember someone once saying that they thought it was really wonderful that I had married Dan, and that was such a great achievement. I never wanted my biggest achievement to be that I married my husband. I wanted to be able to have my own achievements that, you know, were my own wins. And yeah, I wanted more of a identity than being a wife. And I think that that's really important. And I think certainly how we've moved around and the locations that we've been moved to with my previous work, you know, I wasn't able to pursue, the same things anymore. So to have been able to have found something, you know, that fits in with military life, that I'm also really passionate about and love, you know, is amazing. And I, you know, would encourage anybody that, you know, is thinking about setting up their own business, even to give it a go, even if it doesn't work out. I think, you know, to have been able to have tried and to try and, you know, work towards that dream, you know, if it works, you know, it's a bonus. And not just, you know, certainly we're not in this for the money, although money is a good thing. You know, I think it's really important if you can make a difference to, you know, your life and your family makeup, that's, you know, a really important thing, let alone if you can make a difference to others, you know, through your business, which I know that we do off the patch.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, I couldn't say it better myself. I have said it quite a lot, actually, how running a business is really tough and really hard work, but the benefits to yourself, selfishly, are fantastic. I wouldn't change it, even though it's probably aged me quite significantly. But my theory is if I can look after my husband, support him, send him off to war zones, then, you know, a bit of business stuff is pretty easy. So just do it and just try the stuff. And if it goes wrong, doesn't matter. Just try it again. It's very similar. Somebody said recently to me that having a baby and having a business are very similar, and how if the baby is not sleeping or the baby is not eating, you try one thing and you try it and try it. And if it still doesn't work, you change the thing. So you change the thing that you're using to help the baby sleep or help the baby eat. And it's exactly the same in business. You try some stuff. If it doesn't work, just change the plan. You can't go too wrong. Which brings me to the question. This podcast series is all about being inspired in business and running a business. So what are your biggest business tips for somebody who is just starting out or running their own company?
Try it. I think you should always, leap in. If I knew what I know now about our industry, I don't think I would dare set up off the patch. I think ignorance is bliss. I think it's really important to be reactive to whatever happens. And I think, most importantly, like you said, it's important to be changeable and, you know, alter your plan if you keep, you know, trying the same thing. Like with the baby is screaming, you know, if you keep trying to feed the baby's still screaming, baby probably doesn't want to be fed. You just have to switch things up and be reactive. Go with the flow, but just have a go. I think, you know, that's the most important thing. I think if a lot of, you know, even people who've been successful in their businesses looked at their businesses, you know, in 5 years' time, they wouldn't, you know, dare set them up, you know, seeing where they end up. But I think, you know, you've just got to kind of jump in at the deep end and go with it. I think it's really important to be reactive and to, you know, switch things up and just, you know, go with the flow. But, you know, you never know where you could end up unless you try.
And what happens, say you've tried it and it goes wrong, how do you cope with that? How do you move on with your business?
I think it's really important to learn from what you've done in the past. Sometimes, you could have a perception of what, your customers might want. But actually, I think it's really important to listen to your clients and learn from that. Your perception of, what people might want as a product or a service might in reality, not be accurate. So I think it's really important to listen to your customers and, go in their direction. Because, without having your customers at the forefront of your business, really you're just servicing yourself, which is not useful. I think particularly, for us, because we are our own customer. So, I'm a military landlord. Certainly from that perspective, we understand what our landlords are looking for, because I am one. But I think it's really important, to still listen and, make sure that everybody's happy, and just change with the times really as well.
And sometimes your clients and customers come up with your best products and solutions. You get talking to them and you ask them what they think, and they give you some really good feedback. Some of it you probably already know, but there's always little nuggets of information that's really useful that can help you build your business.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's definitely what we found. So yeah, I think it's really important to make sure that you're adapting and catering to their needs, rather than purely your own. You still need to make sure that your business is profitable. The most important thing, I think, as a bit of a business is making sure that not only are you doing it right first time, but that you are maintaining that repeat business, and that if you're keeping your customers happy, then they're more likely to not only recommend you to their friends and other people that they know who might use your services, but also they'll come back and use you again.
Because when you put the effort in finding your clients, look after them, because it's so much easier to keep those ones than go off and find new ones. So definitely, yeah, once you've got them, look after them and make sure that they're happy and that you're listening to them. So what is the plan? Off the Patch is going from strength to strength. Where will it be in 5 years' time?
So we are really concentrating on expanding where we can offer our services. So we are currently trading in Lincolnshire, and also up in North Yorkshire, so for Catterick Garrison, RAF Leeming, around that area. We're just about to open up around Lossiemouth and Kinloss, so up in Scotland, which is really, really exciting. And then we've got plans for later this year down around Norfolk, so Marham, a lot of the bases around there, and we are also getting involved with the future accommodation model pilot over at RAF Wittering. I think it's really good that the MOD have listened to families and are moving with the times in terms of opening up accommodation to people, for example, who maybe aren't married. Accommodation is going to be based on need rather than rank, and I think that's really important. So I think it'll be really exciting and interesting to be a part of that, and hopefully bring the forces more in line with modern family life.
Which is really important, because the modern military is evolving and family life is evolving. And it is really important that they are recognising this. Hopefully, I just have my fingers crossed that they're putting families before money and retainment, and how by supporting the spouse in business and supporting the family life in housing, ultimately makes the serving person happy and they won't, disappear. So I hope that's what's happening.
I think that's really important. I think, if people have got a happy home life, that really does affect retainment. And, if people are happy at home and, people's spouses have got opportunities for, good housing and job opportunities, that'll ultimately keep people serving. I found it really important for me to be able to continue to work. That was something that I personally, found important to my identity. Off the Patch, we've also, we do provide job opportunities for spouses. Our ultimate goal in 5 years' time would be that we would be built up enough that as people post, they can just move their job role with Off the Patch to their new camp to be able to assist us with lettings in the area where they're posted to. But yeah, we provide job opportunities for spouses to assist us with Off the Patch as agents locally. And really, it's particularly important that that job not only fits in with service life, but also with their families. We have a lot of working mothers working with us, so it's important that their work schedule fits around childcare. I know childcare is a huge issue, especially if you've got a husband deployed and you're slumming it on your own, especially if you aren't living close to family. So yeah, it's really important for us that we've created job opportunities where that fits in with not only military life but also family life. And that's something that, as a working mum, it's important to me that, we provide opportunities for people to be able to, pursue work, because that's something that I found really rewarding and certainly, keeps me sane when my husband's deployed, to be able to keep busy and have my own thing.
Yeah, we can do it. We just need that little tiny bit of support to make it just a bit easier. Very important. So, Phoebe, we are unfortunately heading towards the end, but I always ask my poor guests to do the quick fire questions at the end. I know that you have listened to the podcast before, so hopefully this won't be a massive shock to you. So, are you ready for the quick fire questions?
I am.
Great. So the first one is, who would you most like to hear from on the Independent Spouse podcast?
I would love to hear about Nadia Hussein's journey from B Accountancy. I know that she, like me, launched her website during her second pregnancy, and she has a very successful business. I know that she's won some quite prestigious awards as well. So I'd love to hear her story and how she balanced being a mum to a newborn with launching her business.
And I'm pretty sure she rocked the whole shared paternity thing as well.
I don't know.
Yeah, so I think that'd be really interesting to see her side of it as well. The next one is, the Independent Spouse is all about inspiring people and the positives of military life. So how do you stay inspired?
I think it's really important to be open and talk about, how you're doing. I think especially with social media nowadays, people are quite glossy and all about showing face. But I think certainly, within the community, sometimes it's okay to say this sucks and this is really hard. And I think, a lot of people have, military life is hard. No one would pick this. Never, if anyone had told me that this is what it was going to be like, I would not be here today. So it's a terrible, terrible idea. So I think, it's really important just to sometimes say this sucks and this is really hard. And just for, us to help each other through it, because I know sometimes when a pipe's burst and you're on your own and your husband's deployed and life happens, unfortunately, and we can't shy away from that. Unfortunately, people pass away at the most inconvenient times, and you end up on your own having to muddle through it, away from family and your support network. So I think it's really important for us all to be supportive and lean on each other. And sometimes it's okay just to not be okay.
It's so important. And as somebody who has found patch life, there's extremes living on a patch, and yet we're all kind of the same. In theory, we shouldn't have anything in common because the only thing in common is our partners serving in the armed forces. But human beings are fundamentally the same. And no matter how shiny you make your life look, you can't hide it for too long in the military world. Not because we're all peeking through each other's windows looking at each other, but because military life is tough. And it's okay to be a bit miffed sometimes, or just to be a bit honest with each other. And actually, I think we'd all really appreciate it a bit more if we were a bit more genuine and honest with each other about how it is tough. And there's great bits as well, and really exciting bits. But sometimes you just need a cup of tea and a rant with somebody, and it's sad if you can't find that. So I think it's really important that we need to all start sharing it and, looking after each other a bit more. Absolutely.
I think that's really important. I think, it's sometimes like I look back on, situations we've been in and, it's absolutely bonkers. But I think, yeah, it is literally just a lending an ear and a cup of tea to go, well, that wasn't okay. Like, does anyone need anything?
And you never know, you might find your best friend.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
And I think it is quite like, we're all thrown together, from completely different backgrounds and different personalities, but we do have this huge thing in common, that our husbands are serving. And military life is tough. And I think, that does really bring people together. That is a good shared common interest.
And the brilliant part is that you meet people that you would never normally meet. So our last posting, I was only there for a year because we move house all the time, but I had a lovely friend from Liverpool, and then the other one was from Kent, and I'm basically from the Cotswolds. In normal life, not a chance. The likelihood of the three of us living in the same street and then talking to each other is so slim, and yet they're like some of my best pals from my last posting, which you wouldn't get in real life. So that's the good positive part, which I do like from military life. So back to the quickfire questions. Sorry, I got slightly distracted there. The last one is, what would you tell a military spouse or partner who wants to start their own business?
Do it. Have a go. What's the worst that can happen? I think, like if you said to me, 18 months ago, if I had any insight into, how the lettings industry would change and, where we'd be today, I think I'd be far too intimidated to start. But yeah, you've just got to kind of have a go. See where it takes you. Who knows? It might be the best thing you ever did. And if it's not, then what have you got to lose?
Because you don't want to look back and think, oh, I wish I'd done that.
Definitely.
And we can't let the serving people have all the fun.
No, definitely not.
Phoebe, I've loved talking to you today. We have reached the end, unfortunately, which is sad because we could go on forever. But before we go, could you please tell me how we can find you?
You can find us on our social media platforms. So we are on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter. You'll find us at Off the Patch. And you can also find us on our website, which is www.offthepatch.com.
Fab, I love it. Thank you so much. And thank you for spending some time with me today.
Thank you, Jess.
Thanks again to Phoebe, who is really rocking business and mum life. A huge congratulations on the birth of your baby and, of course, your business. Thank you for sharing your story. I know that so many people will find it useful. I will, of course, be back next week with the last story from Series 3. I have had the most amazing time chatting to everybody on this series, and I know a lot of you have found it really inspirational. If that is the case, could I ask a little favour? Could you please subscribe and review the series? It should be easy to spot next to wherever you found this episode. And don't forget to tell your friends all about it too. Maybe they know someone inspirational who might like to be on the next series. I will of course be back next week with another amazing episode. This one is going to be such a good end to the series, so you don't want to miss it. Hit subscribe and be the first to listen. So I will of course see you next week.